Do you imagine for a moment what Shabbos Kodesh would look like if we didn't have the Durabbanans? If we didn't have many of the Gzeiris Chazal that Chazal tell us? I mean, just to give you one idea of what Shabbos Kodesh would look like if we didn't have the Durabbanans, it's quite simple actually. People would be driving on Shabbos with their knees. Their knees would be holding the steering wheel because it's only a shinoi and with the Rabbanon and whatever. So you could just imagine what Shabbos would look like, not only in the idea that it loses the kedusha and sanctity of Shabbos Kodesh, but of course, more than that, it goes beyond that as well, is that people wouldn't use their feet when they drive, they'd use their hands, and all of a sudden it would turn things into being mutter, which we know are doraisa asa. So Chazal understood in their incredible das and chokhmah to see what we needed to do in order to make sure to preserve the kedusha, the sanctity, and of course the halachas as well of Shabbos Kodesh on every level. So any time that we discuss a D'Rabbanan, and we discussed D'Rabbanans many times, but we're about to embark on a very long journey of a D'Rabbanan, on a halacha of Shabbos, which is a D'Rabbanan, but it is something which is, I think, very nogeya. It's something that we have not spoken about here before in this building, and I think it's important for us to understand, number one, that it exists. That's just number one, that it actually exists, it's a real thing. And number two, not only does it exist, of what many people don't even understand and realize that it does exist, how we can keep it and how it actually pertains to us on a Shabbos basis. This is something that we obviously hope is not negayah to anyone, that nobody should ever have to use these halachas, nobody should ever have to, be oisik in these things, but it's something that we have to know. It's a halacha that unfortunately is negayah, sometimes even on a general Shabbos basis. And that is the halacha of Refuah. The halacha of Refuah is medications on Shabbos, and it manifests itself in so many different ways. There are so many different times that people don't even realize that they have a shaila of Refuah without even realize that this is a shaila of Refuah. Just to give you some of the things that we're going to be talking about, and a lot more. We have a lot to discuss. Just the idea of when a person is allowed to take a headache pill, when a person is allowed to take, for example, prescribed medication, whether it be antibiotics or anything it may be similar to that, vitamins, very common shaila. Things like that. What about exercising? What about creams and various other medications that people use? What about, for example, putting on a brace or putting on something around their arm if the arm is hurting them or if the ankle is hurting them? Various types of exercises. What about eating healthy foods? If I'm not feeling well, am I allowed to have a bowl of chicken soup? Or can I have a tea with honey if I've got a bit of a sore throat? Many, many different shilas. Pills for sleeping, for example, sleeping medication for adults, for kids. There are so many different shilas that come up in medication. That's not only in the medication field. What if a person is in a situation where, again, we'll get to the different categories. When a person is sick, what do? When are you allowed to call the doctor? When are you allowed to call the ambulance? How to get to the hospital? When is it mutter? When is it also when to use a shinoi? We're not going to discuss it, but of course falls into this category, which Be'ezus Hashem will be negayah to everyone here. And within the coming few years, what happens if a wife is about to give birth on Shabbos? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Again, we're not going to go maybe through the specifics, but maybe we'll discuss it in a general way. Shilas of Pekuach Nefesh. When someone is showing signs, I'd like to point out to the Olam, signs that someone is in a situation of Pekuach Nefesh. Pick up your phone and call an ambulance. What are the vital signs that you should look out for to know? When is a shayla? Rabbi said these are things that you can't generally sort of pick up as you go on. You have to learn these things, you have to know these things. And this is what we're going to be doing for Be'ezus Hashem, 9:40 here in the morning, every morning, B'siyata D'Shmaya. It's a lot of halachas. There's a tremendous amount of information that we have to know. And like I said, we hope that this is never negayah to anyone, but we do know that it is negayah. And anyone that picked up a Gemara Shabbos or learned the Shulchan Aruch and Semen Shin Chav Ches, Shin Chav Tes, Shin Lamed, it talks about the sugya of Cholim and Pekuach Nefesh. It is so important to learn these halachos, to know them. You know it once, Rabbi Say, you'll know it for the rest of your life. Be'ezus Hashem. So Rabbi Say, please pay attention, listen carefully. We're going to be discussing some really serious and important shailas that are very negayah. Now, where does it come from? As we know, it's a D'Rabbanan. As I mentioned to you, it's not one of the Lamatas Malachas. We don't know that one of the Lamatas Malachas is Refuah on Shabbos. So it's not one of the Lamatas Malachas. It's not a Malacha on Shabbos. It's a D'Rabbanan. Where does it come from? So the Gemara tells us in Shabbos Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis. The Gemara says if you have an animal, and the animal suffers from a problem which doesn't say in the Gemara, but l'chayra this is pshat in the Gemara, high blood pressure. Too much blood, the Gemara says. So the Gemara says you cannot even put it into cold water to cool down the animal over there. And the Gemara continues to say, what about a human being? What about a mensch? What about a yid? What about a person that has too much blood? You can't put him into water to cool him down. Says the Gemara, what's the shaila? What's the problem over here? What's going on? And I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details of the difference why an animal no and a human being but basic idea of what's going on. What's the problem with someone that has high blood pressure or too much blood? And the way to heal him was taking him, putting him into cold water. What's the bayah? What's the problem? Which malacha is this? What's the problem? Says Ula in the Gemara in Shabbos, the problem is gzeira. It's gzeira otu, a person may come to gzeira shchika samamonim, which means a person may crush medication or crush things in order to make medication. And we know that crushing is an issa d'oraisa. It's one of the lamatas malachas of toichen. We know that from Simon Shin Chaf Aleph, and therefore toichen is an issa d'oraisa, and anything that will lead a person to toichen is going to be asa. Right? Therefore, if that's the case, any medication is going to be asa on Shabbos Kodesh, and the issa is because gzeira mishum toichin, that I may come to go along and crush. Now the olam may ask the following kasha. Simple kasha, we don't do this. We don't really do this anymore. I don't know how many people that have a headache and say, oh, I heard that if you do this and you put these two together and drink it with some water, you're good. Nobody really goes along and starts crushing on Shabbos. So what are we worried about? So there are two answers to this, Rabbi Say. The Ktsaisa Shulchan, Reb Chaim No, the Debet Sinarabim, Ben Moshe, the Oznidbru, many poskim discuss this shaila. And it's a very, very important shaila as the fundamental idea, or before we embark on the journey of Refuah, to understand why is it negayah to us. So the Ktsaisa Shulchan, as I mentioned, and others tell us that once Chazal were gozer on something, and we find this many times in the Gemara also, we need a based in Godel b'minyan b'chochma than the original one that instituted it in order to be mevatel it. You with me? We don't have such a based in. We have Gavaldige Botei Dinim nowadays. We have Gavaldige Dayanim, Choshev Rabbonim Gedolim, beautiful. But we don't have a based in that's bigger than the based in that instituted the Issa to begin with. Mimela, to mevatel something that Chazal, that the Gzeiras Chazal, that based in said, is also because nowadays people don't do it, we can't do that. Doesn't work. Okay? That's number one. Number two, and I experienced this myself, I think the last time I gave this shir was about maybe 5 years ago, and I was sitting there and I was saying this taina, it's not negayah, we don't do it. A bacha raised his hand, he says to me, what do you mean? Come to my house. So that's what I did. I came to his house, he shows me his father has a whole room of crushing. This is the crushing room. And in this room, it's mamish like a pharmacy. It's mamish, they got different types of potions and things bubbling on over there, and there's powders going in different things. It's amazing what's happening over there, right? I give you the dress afterwards, you'll go there, it's in Eretz Yisrael as that happens. It's gavaldik. Now he said to me that his father does this. People do these things. Now I muskin that it's not such a common thing, and he might be one person, but he was in my share, and imagine how many other people are in different people's share and different people around the world that do these things. Not only that, they do have, and this is not, I'm not going to get into the details of Teichen Achateichen, but they have sometimes that a person can't swallow a pill, they crush it down, give it to kids, all these sorts of things. And by the way, Rabbi, I do want to mention that I want to give over here as many eitzes and practical ideas of what you can do in order to take medication. What we'd like to do, and Chazal try very hard to do this, is to make your life as easy and as pleasant as possible. The ways of the Torah are pleasant, they're beautiful, they're gavaldik. People often get the wrong end of the stick and they're like, oh, Refuah, Hashem doesn't want me to have a nice Shabbos, and therefore he wants me to have a headache. No, that's not the pshat. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to have the most beautiful Shabbos of your life every single Shabbos that you have. However, if you have a headache, you have to know how to deal with it. You have to know halachas on a geya to that sugya. So we are going to be giving a lot of practical eitzes, some eitzes that I think the olim don't know, of how you can take medication and in what situations you are allowed to take medication. But the basic idea, Rabbi Say, is that it does apply nowadays. Number one, we can't say to be mavatal it because it's not so negeya. Number two, it is negeya. And number three, we have a famous Yisrael from the Vilna Gaon in Hilchas Brismila. The Rambam brings Hilchas Mamorim and other places as well that we find that just because Chazal told us one reason, that doesn't mean there are not other reasons that we don't even know about. And therefore, and others bring it as well, that there's other isurim when it comes to refuah. There could be mamreach, mamachek, there could be all sorts of different shilas, uvdin dechol. We'll talk about many of those things where we talk about exercising and various other things that people do on Shabbos that don't even realize that are included in refuah. Now, people also have to know, this is all part of the Hagdama introduction. Refuah is not only taking medication. Refuah also means putting a cream. For example, you have a rash, or you have whatever it may be, you have a rash, dry skin, you have a rash from something, and you have a reaction, and you want to put on some cream. So leaving aside a moment the shaila of mamachik, mamreach, which is smearing, which is anyway a shaila on Shabbos, one of the lamates malachos that you can't smear on Shabbos. Maybe we'll have a share, bli native, if the owner reminds me, we'll go through the different creams, we'll bring them in, we'll show the different creams, and which ones are mutter, which ones are asa, and how to apply them in different situations. But even if you get around that shaila of smearing, you have a problem of refuah. Refuah medication doesn't only mean putting it in your mouth or swallowing a pill. It could be any type of medication. What
if you pre-do it, like sunscreen?
We'll talk about all that. We've got lots and lots to talk about. Prevention. We've got Rabbi, a lot to talk about. Okay, what happens when a fast day, Tisha B'Av falls Motzei Shabbos? Can I take a pill that makes you fast easier on Shabbos? That it goes Motzei Shabbos. By the way, that leads to an interesting shaila. Hashem is bringing a gavaldig amaisa. What's the issa of refuah? Is the issa? There's a lomdish shaila. You ready? Is the issa of refuah to do the action of refuah, to do the action of healing, or is the issa of refuah to be healed? Okay? The bells are dying with Shammai Gross and Shuvas Shevet HaKahosi brings down the following shaila. What happens if a woman, this is negay to this, I don't want to spend too much time on this, I want to get to practical halakha lamaisa, but just an interessant shaila. So the bells are dying like this. What happens if a woman lit candles? Now, a woman lit candles at Lokas HaNevis of Shabbos. She's Mekabel Shabbos. That's the din, right? A man is not generally. A woman is Mekabel Shabbos when she lights the candles. She lights the candles, then she chaps that she has a real bad reaction on her arm, on her hand, and she forgot to put on the cream before she lit candles. Now, is she allowed, again, let's leave aside the shaila of smearing and creams and everything, als the refuah shabai. Can she ask her husband, do me a favor, I'll stretch out my hand just to smear it in? Again, if the Issa of Refuah is doing the Refuah, so she's not doing it. She's standing there, the husband's doing it. If the Issa of Refuah is being healed, so she's being healed, right? Her skin is going to have a Refuah from that. So what exactly is the Issa in this case? I don't want to go too much into the Inyonim. The Maisa, the Belz Adayin is a little bit machmer in this case. I think to be Mekel because it's Xeira, and whatever it is, I have a right also Rabbi Shlomo Zalman where he talks about doing refuah on a goy. But Al Kaponim, it's an interesting shaila, interesting hakira. Let's get to practical halacha and Maisa. Rabbi said there are a number of categories that we have to get to. And let's split it up clearly so everyone understands what are the categories. And a little bit, maybe we'll discuss a little bit of the halacha, and then tomorrow, Be'ezus Hashem, we'll go mamish delve and jump right into the sugya very practically. There are 5 basic levels. Level number 1, which we'll be starting with, is a meichosh ba'alma. A meichosh ba'alma means someone that has a small discomfort, a little bit of a headache, a little bit of a sore throat. It's a meichosh. He's a meichosh ba'alma. The general halacha of a meichosh ba'alma is all medication is asa. All medication is asa. There's no heta except many eitzes that will give you be'ezus Hashem to do any medication. A meichosh ba'alma is someone that has a small discomfort. He's not in bed. He's not, taking off a day. Whatever it is, he's just a little bit shvach. Okay, we'll give many examples. The general din is everything's asa. Miktsas choili, we'll talk a little bit about someone that has like a semi-illness. He's got like a pain in one part of his body, but it's not so bad. The main sugya that we'll discuss is what we call a choila she'ein by sakana, A choyle she'ein bo sakana means he's a choyle, he's sick, but it's not a sakana. He's in absolutely no sakana. Someone that's got the flu, someone that's got strep, someone that's got a huge migraine, or someone that's got a major toothache. And again, we have to discuss and describe what is the gather of a choyle she'ein bo sakana, because a choyle she'ein bo sakana is allowed to take all medication, and sometimes even ask a guy to go driving on Shabbos. We'll have to discuss it, Rabbi said. That's why it's important to listen carefully to the categories and know them, because otherwise people are going to get confused. It's mutter, it's osa, clear. The next category is a choyle sheyesh bo sakana. He's sick, but he's in a matzav of sakana, which is pekuach nefesh. Everything is mutter. It's like a Wednesday afternoon. And again, we will discuss what that means and the parameters of halacha of how to call, when to call, and maybe I'll even give the olam a list of signs to see. This is very negeya to yourselves. It's negeya, again, Rahman al-Islam, you should never know, but it's negeya to your children. Sometimes a child falls out of a bed. Parents don't know what to do. There are certain reactions of a child to know carefully whether or not this is pekuach nefesh, do I have to call the ambulance or not? Okay, should I be machmeh, should I be mekel? All of these sorts of shilas. And then we have sakonas eva. Sakonas eva means that he's got a chashash of losing one of his limbs. Now we have to know what's a limb. Is a tooth a limb? Right? That's a shaila. Right? Losing a finger, losing a toe. All of these things, dislocated arms, shoulders. These are things that happen keseder in many people's houses, and people think, yeah, it's mutter, you can do whatever you want. Wrong. I've had many people knocking on my door. I think guys have actually been there when people knocked on my door and asked me, what do I do? My son just, they were playing, they were fighting, whatever. He ripped his arm. It's dislocated. What do you do? Right? These are old shilas. You can't just, do whatever you want. The baby's crying, you can just call. You have to know the halachas in these cases. Each one is a separate sugya. Mitzvah Shem, tomorrow we're going to try to discuss the sugya of a mechush ba'alma, someone that has a slight discomfort, and what the halacha is for him. Have a wonderful day.